Michael Schofield gets his whole body tattooed before he attempts to rob a bank. He acts almost as if he is waiting for the police to arrive. When he is taken to court, he pleads guilty and waits to be taken to the prison where he is going to serve 5 years. After meeting his inmate Sucre, Michael sees his brother Lincoln in another compartment. Lincoln has been sentenced to death because he killed the vice president's brother. A flashback shows us the last conversation Michael had with his brother, who told him that he is innocent. Michael also meets Dr. Sarah to receive his insulin shots because he is a diabetic. During his first days in prison, Michael gets to work and plants several origamis around. That evening, Michael goes to the church to meet with his brother, who is surprised to see him in prison. Schofield tells him that he came here to break him out. In the meantime, hints of a plot by the Secret Service are given to the viewers, implying that they are connected to Lincoln's sentence. Schofield introduces himself to John Abruzzi because he needs a card from him to join the ranks of the employed inmates. John's people on the outside receive a picture of Fibonacci, the man who betrayed Abruzzi and sent him to prison. Abruzzi's men jump on Schofield because John is impatient to learn where Fibonacci is located. Schofield will be sent to solitary confinement after this incident, but he cracks a deal with Warden Pope to build his Taj Mahal replica, which he is preparing as a gift to his wife. Schofield is a structural engineer. The next day, Schofield meets C-Note and asks him to get a drug that acts as an insulin blocker, implying that he is not really a diabetic. Eventually, Abruzzi gives Schofield a card to join the rest of the inmate employees. This gives Schofield the chance to spend more time with his brother and talk about his plan. Schofield reveals that he worked in this prison as an engineer when it was built. Lincoln wonders if Michael has seen the blueprints of the prison, but Schofield has more than that. He has tattooed the blueprints on his body. Schofield plays a game of chess with an old man named Cooper, who is believed to have parachuted out of a plane with $1.5 million. Schofield knows that he is going to need money on the outside, so he thinks about using this man's stash. As a part of his plan, Schofield needs an Allen bolt and tries to unscrew one from a bench. The problem is that this bench belongs to T-Bag, a ruthless criminal with a large following of white criminals in prison. T-Bag offers to protect Schofield if the latter becomes his boyfriend, but Michael refuses the proposal. As a consequence, T-Bag takes the Allen bolt from him and threatens Schofield to keep his eyes open. Meanwhile, Lincoln's old love interest and lawyer Veronica gets a videotape that depicts Lincoln pulling the trigger on the vice president's brother. When they meet later on, Lincoln promises to her that he did not do it. He approached the car with a gun in his hand, but the man was already dead when Lincoln saw him. He was also told that the guy he was supposed to kill was just a low-life thug. Later, a battle starts within the prison as the white inmates have a rivalry with the black inmates. T-Bag's boyfriend attacks Schofield because he is jealous of him, but Michael steals the bolt from him. Another inmate kills T-Bag's boyfriend, who dies in Michael's arms. T-Bag sees this image and assumes that Schofield killed the young man, promising that he is going to retaliate. In the meantime, Veronica is being watched by Agent Kellerman of the Secret Service because she is trying to learn more about the night when Lincoln supposedly performed the hit. Back in the prison, Sarah runs a test on Schofield because she suspects he is not a diabetic. Thankfully, C-Note has brought him the drug Schofield asked just in time, so the test shows he is a diabetic. Schofield can keep returning to the infirmary for insulin shots since this area is critical to his plan. As soon as he leaves the infirmary, Abruzzi grabs Schofield and requires to know Fibonacci's location. Even though Abruzzi tortures him, Schofield will only give him Fibonacci's location once they are outside the walls of this prison. After losing a couple of fingers, Sarah takes care of Schofield in the infirmary. Lincoln gives Michael his word that he will teach Abruzzi a lesson, but Schofield asks him to stand down because Abruzzi is a part of his plan. Then Schofield reveals that Sucre is also part of his plan. Lincoln prompts him not to trust Sucre because he is a thief, but Schofield has no other choice. He knew before he came here that he had to recruit his cellmate even though he had no idea who his cellmate would be. Without his cellmate being in the escape, he can't start digging the cell. Schofield needs to test Sucre, so he hides a phone while Sucre sees him. Lincoln tells guard Bellick about the phone, saying that Sucre has one. Bellick presses Sucre to learn about the phone, but the inmate remains silent. Knowing that he can trust him, Schofield reveals the escape plan to Sucre. On the other hand, Sucre is going to be released in 16 months and return to his fiancée, so he doesn't want to risk everything in an attempt to escape. To protect himself, Sucre asks to get transferred to another cell. In the meantime, Kellerman introduces himself to Veronica, saying that he will assist her if she finds any clues that can shed light on Lincoln's innocence. Later, T-Bag waits to find Schofield in a vulnerable position so he can attack him, but Abruzzi intervenes because he has decided to change his approach. After beating up T-Bag, he tells Schofield that he wants to work with him. Schofield lets him know that he will need Abruzzi to find a plane for them when they are out. He also reassures Abruzzi that they will be out before Fibonacci testifies against him, which will happen in a month. Soon Bellick introduces Michael to his new cellmate straight from the psychiatric ward, a man named Potoshik. Schofield's plan has already fallen 3 days behind. He considers recruiting Potoshik, but a guy like him can't be trusted. Therefore, Schofield decides to start digging during the night. Nonetheless, this solution is not going to work, since Potoshik suffers from a neurological condition, which does not allow him to sleep at all. Schofield tries to work on opening a hole behind his cell's toilet when Potoshik is absent, but there is not nearly enough time to make real progress. In addition to that, Potoshik starts becoming obsessed with Michael's tattoos because he sees a pattern in them. Michael asks the warden to get Potoshik transferred, but Pope can't do anything about it if there is not an important reason to make that request. Meanwhile, Sucre's fiancée has started dating his cousin and tells him over the phone that she can't wait for him anymore. Outside the prison, Veronica asks for help from the Project Justice organization, but they tell her they have already reviewed Lincoln's case and they are not going to do it again if she does not bring them any new evidence. However, one of the lawyers from Project Justice, Nick, meets Veronica later that day to tell her that he is going to help her out, even though his boss is not going to get involved. Back inside the prison, Schofield realizes that he has to deal with Potoshik as soon as possible. The crazy guy has started drawing Michael's tattoos on paper. After asking Abruzzi for some chemicals, the man brings them to him. He also brings a knife for Schofield, asking him to deal with Potoshik. Sucre finds Schofield in the yard to tell him that he wants back in the plan. When Schofield returns to his cell, he bangs his head on the metal bars to fake an attack from Potoshik. Potoshik is taken away and Sucre is brought back to the cell. While the two of them get to work, Michael explains that the infirmary is the weak link to the prison's security system, so that's why he visits it so often to do his thing. Meanwhile, Agent Kellerman and his partner Agent Hale find out that Schofield is Lincoln's brother. Too many people are trying to help Lincoln, so they should do something about it. Their play is to file for a transfer request to get Schofield in another prison. The Secret Service asks Pope to carry on with Schofield's transfer, but the warden is not going to do it. To change his mind, the agents hand him a file that tells the story of his illegitimate son, threatening that they will tell his wife everything if he doesn't do what they asked of him. Pope visits Schofield in his cell to ask what's going on with him, and Michael lets him know that he is Lincoln's brother, asking for 3 weeks of time. The warden can't do anything about it and tells Schofield that he is going to be transferred tomorrow. Michael talks with Cooper to ask for advice. The man tells him to write a petition. No matter what the result will be, the court is obligated to look into it, and that will block his transfer for 30 days. Michael writes the petition and then does some laundry with Sucre to block the view in their cell. Schofield walks right through the hole they have opened behind their bathroom to roam the corridors. Michael wants to find out which route they should take after they break out. He has to reach a decision between 3 separate streets. Outside the prison, Nick and Veronica suspect that the tape showing Lincoln performing the hit is made up. Nick takes the tape to a tech guy he knows. The tech guy makes a discovery while examining the sound of the tape. He believes that the sound of the gunshot has been recorded in another room, not in the parking lot depicted in the tape. Veronica asks him if he would testify that in court, but the tech guy would only do so if they brought him the original tape, since this one is just a copy. Later, the two lawyers find out that the room containing the original tape has been flooded, and the evidence is destroyed. Meanwhile, Kellerman asks Pope to destroy Michael's petition. Although Pope destroys it, he considers the possibility of telling his wife the truth. Back inside the prison, Michael fakes a breakout and watches as 2 of the streets he has in mind flood with police cars while the other one remains clean. Although it seems like a big misunderstanding, Michael is causing lots of trouble around, which makes Bellick dislike him. The next morning, Schofield is about to get transferred, but Pope changes his mind and keeps him in prison because he filed a motion. Then, Pope goes to his wife to tell her the truth about his past. The Secret Service agents speak with their boss, who tells them to find a way to kill Lincoln before his death sentence. Over the following days, Schofield keeps working on the escape plan, but he is back on schedule because the guards keep checking the cells. The only solution around this is to cause a lockdown. That would give him all the time in the world. Sucre suggests that to cause a lockdown, they have to make the inmates riot. A good way to do that is to get to the AC system and turn up the heat. Literally. The inmates start complaining, but Michael's plan backfires on him. Some of the inmates return to their cells peacefully after a confrontation with the guards, but some others follow Teabag in a riot. Schofield gets back to work, but his brother is trapped between 2 groups of inmates, trying to protect a rookie guard who was supposed to take him back to his cell. All the while, an inmate has received an order from the Secret Service to kill Lincoln. Meanwhile, the prisoners in the infirmary hear about the riot, and they start their own little riot, forcing Sarah to try to defend herself in her small office. At the same time, Lincoln is outnumbered by T-Bag and his followers. Although he is really strong, he is knocked out and T-Bag grabs the guard. By a total accident, T-Bag finds Schofield's hole in his cell, but the guard sees it as well. T-Bag wants to be a part of the team, but they also have to find a solution about the guard. T-Bag wants to kill him, but Schofield keeps everybody from doing so. Then, Schofield realizes that Sarah is in trouble, so he runs to the infirmary to help her out. Elsewhere, a huge inmate named Turk lures Lincoln underground, supposedly to take him to Michael. Turk lures Lincoln underground and surprises him with an attack. Turk tries to choke him with a thin cord. Both of them are heavy and full of muscles, moving like tanks. Lincoln bangs Turk on a wall and manages to get free. In Schofield's cell, T-Bag bullies the guard. Meanwhile, Veronica and Nick have discovered that the phone call for Lincoln the night of the murder was made from Washington, while the murder took place in Chicago. This leads them to travel to Washington looking for answers. Governor Tancredi storms to the prison yard, asking Pope to take action. As it is revealed, Sarah is his daughter. Things get crazier in the infirmary, but Schofield arrives right on time to pull Sarah out of there. Sarah is scared, but Michael assures her that these corridors lead outside. He is not going to hurt her, but rather take her to safety. Turk lurks in the shadows and attacks Lincoln again. Burroughs tries to learn more information as Turk attacks him with a metal pipe. Lincoln pushes Turk to his death while asking him who sent him. Turk doesn't give out any information before he dies. In the meantime, Sucre and Abruzzi keep digging a dangerous wall. They have to follow Michael's instructions perfectly to avoid hitting a pipe, which can cause an explosion. A group of prisoners tries to follow Michael and Sarah, but the former protects her when they are attacked. Another prisoner tries to help his mate, but Sarah breaks his knee with a precise kick. This buys herself and Michael some time to run away. Soon, Michael takes Sarah to safety as a few sharpshooters open fire toward the inmates following her. Michael drops to the floor and drags himself away from the bullets. In Washington, Nick and Veronica find the phone booth that was used to make the phone call on the night of the murder. The phone in the booth rings, and a voice tells them that they are as good as dead. Finally, the police forces are about to enter the prison to reclaim control of it. Michael instructs everyone to let the guard go, but T-Bag doesn't think that's a good idea and kills him before the police squad gets inside. Right outside the prison, Sarah realizes that Schofield knows too much about the prison's layout, which is not normal. Veronica and Nick return to her apartment with a bunch of files. A neighbor helps them carry the packages, but he dies in an explosion as soon as he opens Veronica's apartment door. Schofield's plan requires him to dig a hole into the guard's room, but nobody is allowed there except for Cooper, who is trusted by the guards. Michael approaches him trying to recruit him, but Cooper insists he is not the man Schofield thinks he is. If he is relying on his supposedly $1.5 million, he is making a mistake. Outside, Nick tells Veronica that they should not contact anyone because if the people who are after them think they are dead, they can use that liberty to continue their research uninterrupted. Schofield finds Cooper's cat, which was lost during the riot, but the latter still refuses to do him a favor and start a fire in the guard's room. Elsewhere, the Secret Service agents create yet another plot, killing LJ's mother and stepfather. Then they casually frame the boy for it. Later, Bellick asks Cooper who killed the guard, but the inmate doesn't want to become a snitch because that would cause issues for him. Bellick kills his cat to punish, and this leads Cooper to help Schofield by starting a fire in the guard's room. This is exactly what Schofield needs, because Abruzzi's crew will be invited to fix the damages. Meanwhile, T-Bag frames one of his friends for the guard's death to get Bellick off their backs. Then, he keeps threatening the group that he will expose their plan, so they are forced to accept him as a part of their team. The crew starts digging in the guard's room when they are taken there to renovate it. By the end of this episode, it is also revealed that the Secret Service agents are working for Madam Vice President herself. Over the next couple of days, the young man who is kept by T-Bag as a plaything asks Michael for help. Schofield does not want to get involved. The crew keeps digging in the guard's room. Little by little, they have to get rid of the debris produced on the ground. They put it in their pockets and empty it in the yard. One day, Schofield feels bad when he sees the young man who asked him for help committing the unthinkable. Bellick approaches Abruzzi to tell him that he has not received his monthly payment. He threatens that if he does not get paid, Abruzzi will lose all of his privileges. Abruzzi communicates with the Italian mafia on the outside, but it seems to him like they are trying to cut him off because he is not giving them Fibonacci's location. Later, the Italian mafia puts a new guy in charge, Lorelli. Abruzzi has a hard time accepting that and attacks his former subordinate, but the rest of the group holds him back because there is a new hierarchy now. Outside the prison, Nick with Veronica speak to Stedman's wife, the vice president's brother. The woman tells them that Stedman was going to be prosecuted for a potential scam, so many of his associates were going to lose money. To make sure that they would not, any of them could have killed him. Teabag harasses a new inmate named David, but the young man tells him that he doesn't want anything to do with him. Teabag won't get off David's back, and Michael sees this. He believes that this time he has to do something about it. In the meantime, LJ communicates with Veronica, who suspects that Kellerman is tracking his phone. Following her instructions, LJ loses the agents and finds Veronica along with Nick. The next time the crew gets together, Michael hits Teabag's knee and clarifies that he is the one who sets the rules, ordering him to let David alone. Then, the crew stumbles on some bad news since Bellick has not received his payment from Abruzzi, and he is not going to give John more time. Abruzzi's crew is removed from the guards room, and Lorelli's crew is assigned to do the job. The crew has to get back into that room, so Abruzzi asks Schofield to give Fibonacci to his boss Falzone. If they don't, the other crew will discover the hole. Schofield thinks about it because Fibonacci is just a guy who happened to be in the wrong time and place. He was working for the Mafia, but he had no idea until he saw John killing 2 men. Meanwhile, C-Note suspects that something is off with Schofield and asks Lorelli to work with his crew. Since Lorelli does not need anyone, C-Note offers to pay him $100 per month. Schofield asks Abruzzi to call Falzone and invite him for a meeting in the prison. Falzone agrees, but John knows he is a dead man if Schofield messes this up. C-Note starts working with the crew and discovers the hole in the floor. Elsewhere, a man named Quinn has been sent by the vice president to take matters into his own hands. Quinn asks the agents to step aside as he goes after the lawyers and LJ. Back in the prison, Falzone comes to meet John and Schofield. Schofield outlines how he found Fibonacci, and then Falzone asks to get his address. Schofield asks for some money in exchange, but Abruzzi shows him a picture of Veronica, threatening to kill her if Michael does not give them the address. Schofield has to protect Veronica, so he gives Falzone Fibonacci's address. Falzone reinstates Abruzzi as the top dog of the Mafia inside this prison, and the latter asks him to fix the issue with Bellick's money. Falzone gathers a team to go after Fibonacci, but Michael has sent him right into a trap. Abruzzi confronts Schofield about it, but it is revealed that the two of them have been working together on this one. Meanwhile, Quinn kills Veronica's ex-boyfriend and uses his computer to send her an encrypted message. Veronica replies to it, and that's all Quinn needs to track her location. Abruzzi's crew returns to the guards room to keep working on the hole. Schofield announces that they will be out of here by Friday before C-Note crashes the party. He has discovered the hole and wants to be part of the team. Schofield has no other choice but to get him on board. The next day, Schofield has a visit from his wife Nika, who brings him a credit card. During the night, Schofield uses the card to open a few doors to get to the room where his belongings are kept. He opens the box with his stuff to look for his watch, but he realizes it has been stolen. Near the woods, Quinn pretends he has been injured to convince Veronica and the rest to let him in. Once he is inside with them, he shoots Nick and ties the others up. He uses Nick as leverage because he is bleeding out. He wants to know what clues they have in their possession. In the morning, Schofield finds the guard who stole the watch from him. This watch is a part of Michael's plan, which means that he has to take it back. To do that, Michael asks David for help because stealing stuff is his trade. In exchange, he will think about putting him on the working crew. David gets to work and fakes a seizure to be able to approach the guard. When Michael sees him in the infirmary, the guard is missing the watch from his wrist. Pope calls Cooper to tell him that his daughter is sick, but the state is refusing to allow him to go see her. Cooper goes to Schofield to give him the watch and tells him that he wants to escape with the rest of the group. He also offers Schofield the money he has hidden from the robbery he performed so many years ago. Schofield uses the watch and a cell phone to create a recording device. He plants it near the infirmary area because he needs to figure out the shift switches of the guards. At the same time, Veronica and LJ escape. On top of that, they manage to trap Quinn into a well. That same night, Bellick finds Nika and pressures her to tell him more information about Schofield. Nika tries to avoid his questions, but eventually reveals that she brought Michael a credit card. While everything else is happening, Schofield gradually grows closer to Sarah. They enjoy the short meetings they have. Outside the prison, Quinn calls Kellerman for help, but the latter just makes sure that Quinn is never going to escape. Schofield takes the recorder back and makes his calculations, estimating that they have 18 minutes in total to escape. When he meets with Lincoln, he tells him that there is not enough time for all of them to escape. One of them has to be left behind. C-Note overhears Schofield speaking with Lincoln about the extra member of the crew. When he lets the others know that one of them should be left behind, everybody starts thinking about Teabag. However, T-Bag smells the conspiracy and announces that he has told his cousin about their escape. If he does not hear from him 5 minutes before the escape and 20 minutes after, he will call the guards to tell them everything. The Mafia finds the cousin and Abruzzi sends a man to abduct him. The plan is to keep him alive until they escape and then release him, but things go sideways. Abruzzi's guy kills T-Bag's cousin along with his son when he pulls a gun. The murder of the kid makes Abruzzi feel guilty. Some kind of mold starts forming in his cell, which makes Abruzzi question his eyes, considering that he is seeing the image of Jesus. When he talks to the priest of the prison, he is convinced that God appears to people in moments when they need forgiveness the most. In the meantime, Bellick learns about the watch from guard Geary. He takes David aside for a talk until he convinces him to spy on Schofield and report to him what Michael is doing. Hale has started regretting everything he has done and calls Veronica to ask her for a meeting because he wants to give her information that can prove Lincoln's innocence. Abruzzi corners T-Bag to force him to back out of the escape, but the latter spits a razor out of his mouth and attacks Abruzzi with it. Schofield navigates the corridors while the crew completes the hole in the guard's room. Geary comes to check on them and Lincoln is forced to attack him in order to stall him. When Michael emerges from the hole, he declares that they are leaving tonight. Despite their progress, getting Lincoln is going to be a problem. Abruzzi is transferred to a hospital by helicopter so he can receive better medical care. Lincoln is beaten up by the guards and taken back to solitary confinement. Michael asks to see his brother, but that's a request the warden can't grant. He tells Schofield that he can only see his brother in his execution, which is going to take place in 36 hours. Schofield tells the crew that the escape is off until they get Lincoln, but the rest of the members want to escape tonight with or without Lincoln and Schofield. Michael doesn't give up easily. He uses a razor blade to extract a pill he has been hiding inside his bicep. Then, he speaks to the priest and asks him to deliver a cross to Lincoln since it will mean a lot coming from him. The priest delivers the cross, and Lincoln finds the pill along with a message in it. The message says, "Eat 810." When they get to the guard's room, Schofield causes a minor flood to trick Bellick into forcing them to stay in the room to clean the mess. Veronica visits Lincoln to tell him that Nick is working on some new findings they have. Most probably they are going to achieve a postponement of the execution. When the time comes, Lincoln eats the pill and starts shaking uncontrollably. As a consequence, he is taken to the infirmary. As soon as the time hits 9 o'clock, the team gets moving. Meanwhile, Veronica meets with Hale, who tells her that nobody killed Stedman since he is still alive. Kellerman interrupts them and kills Hale before he can give Veronica a file with the list of the names involved in Lincoln's conspiracy. Back inside the prison, Michael takes the group of escapees under the infirmary so they can break out and take Lincoln along on the way. Unfortunately, the maintenance has replaced a tube that Schofield had opened a hole to, and the plan can't be carried out. T-Bag is angry at Michael and pulls a knife to attack him, but a guard walks by and they have to stop. When they get the chance, they leave the room to return to their cells as if nothing happened. Schofield asks Sarah to talk to her father, the governor, about Lincoln, but she is not going to do it because her father never listens to her. At the same time, Nick and Veronica are fighting to get a court appeal because, as she claims, she has a secret informant who told her that Stedman is not dead. If that's the case, Stedman's body should not be really buried in his coffin. By talking to Cooper, Schofield hears the story of an older inmate who was sentenced to death. The chair didn't work, so he was forced to go through the mental and emotional process of it again 3 weeks later when the chair got fixed. Schofield considers that he can save Lincoln by breaking the chair. He goes into the corridors once more and is lucky enough to see a mouse. He grabs the mouse and then releases it to the room with the chair, hoping that the mouse will cause a discontinuation of the electricity current somehow. The problem is, David has heard Michael talking about the chair and he spits it to Bellick. The guard checks on the chair, but it's not working. While trying to figure out what's wrong, he finds out that a mouse has been roasted inside the electricity board. All they have to do to get the chair working again is to change a fuse. In the meantime, Veronica and Nick get a hearing, but they have no tangible proof to present. Veronica talks about Kellerman and Hale, but the vice president's lawyer hands everybody a note from the Secret Service stating that the service does not have any agents with those names. Lincoln's lawyers lose the appeal. Lincoln is taken to the final visitation space with Michael, while Sarah visits the lawyers and then her father to present him with some clues. Nonetheless, this is not enough. When Lincoln is taken near the chair, the governor calls Pope to tell him that he is not granting Lincoln a favor. With that, everything seems lost for Lincoln. Moments before Lincoln is executed, he spots a man in the crowd and tries to tell Michael about him. Pope receives a phone call which forces him to stop the execution. Then he explains to everyone that Judge Kessler called him to ask him to stop. Veronica leaves to go meet the judge, while Lincoln tells Michael that he saw their father within the crowd. Judge Kessler informs Veronica that he received a document showing a discrepancy in the coroner's reports. He will delay Lincoln's execution for 2 weeks. He has also ordered Stedman's body to be dug out so a new coroner can run new tests on it. Schofield starts working on finding a new path to their freedom. He concludes that they have to pass through the psychiatric ward. Schofield needs to spend some time exploring the new path so he can familiarize himself with it. Sucre helps him out by getting him a guard's uniform from his cousin who works in the laundry. Cooper spends some time speaking with C-Note, revealing a new secret. C-Note has kept his family in the dark, not letting them know that he is imprisoned. He fixes things so his family receives postal cards from him to assume that he is a soldier in Iraq. Schofield uses the guard uniform to browse around in the psychiatric ward, finding what he's been looking for. In the meantime, the coroner examines Stedman's supposed body and concludes that this is really Stedman. On his way back, Schofield has to hide from a guard and burns his body on a hot tube. Michael reaches his cell but passes out. He wakes up in the infirmary the next morning while Bellick assumes that Sucre burnt Schofield. Meanwhile, Kellerman starts working with some agents from an organization called The Company, where Vice President Reynolds also belongs. By reviewing footage from the cameras, they realize that Lincoln's father was the one who slipped the envelope with the reports under Judge Kessler's door. Back in Schofield's cell, he checks on his burn mark only to find out that a part of the blueprint on his back is gone. The story takes us 3 years in the past to show us how the brothers used to live. Michael was doing good in his life. After he graduated, he got a good job and managed to buy a house. On the other hand, Lincoln was living the life of a thug. Schofield was even looking down on his brother, being tired of playing the older brother to his older brother. One day, Lincoln returned to his house only to find Crab and another man waiting for him. Lincoln owed Crab $90,000, but his debt was paid by this other man. However, he didn't do this out of his good heart. He asked Lincoln to go kill Stedman. Lincoln was confused and called Schofield for guidance, but Michael did not reply. Lincoln arrived at the scene with a pistol in his hands, but the person in the car was already dead. Lincoln got arrested and Schofield blamed him for his actions. Their father disappeared and their mother died, but Michael handled things in a better way. Their mother also left them with some money from her life insurance. Schofield used the money well while Lincoln did not. However, Veronica reveals to Michael that their mother left them no money because she did not have life insurance. Lincoln borrowed the money to give it to Schofield, making it look like it did not come from him. These developments lead Michael to decide to go to prison to save his brother. As for the other characters, Sarah was a drug addict. She met Bellick in a support group, and he invited her to work in the prison. Sucre was arrested during a robbery because he needed money to buy a ring for his fiancée. C-Note was serving in the military, but was dishonorably discharged when he reported some illegal torture. T-Bag was in love with a woman who had 2 children, but the woman reported him to the authorities when she realized that he was a fugitive. Finally, Reynolds has a talk with a man who has his back turned, but he is revealed to be Stedman. Back in the present day, the crew now has a new problem to deal with since Bellick puts David on the team. He wants David near Schofield as much as possible so he can undermine his plans. Outside the prison, Veronica's group goes back to the well to find Quinn's dead body. They lower LJ down to steal his phone, but the boy also sees 2 names carved on the wall, Kellerman and Krivecki. Meanwhile, Sarah has recovered a piece of fabric from a guard's uniform from when she was treating Michael's burn. She hands it to Pope, and the warden asks Schofield about it. Since Schofield can't provide an answer, Pope throws him in solitary. Schofield tries to remember the part of his tattoo that's missing, but he can't. This makes him mad, and he starts punching the wall. In the meantime, Bellick will bring a professional crew to work in the guards room, so the group of inmates has to find a solution to cover the hole in the floor. Since only Sucre's cell has access to the corridors, he is the one who is going to do it during the night. Unfortunately, Sucre has to run through the yard, and he gets caught. He has taken some precautions, though, and comes up with a story, saying that he waited for something to be dropped for him over the wall. Supposedly, it's just some underwear that belongs to his girlfriend. Bellick buys it, but still takes Sucre to solitary. While Sarah is called by a guard to check on Schofield, David tells Bellick that the crew is up to something. He is not certain what the fuss is about, but it has something to do with the floor. Bellick proceeds to check it out, but Sucre has done his job well. The cement has dried and the floor looks good. Outside the prison, LJ finds out that Kellerman's real name is Owen Krivecki. He invades his house intending to kill him, but the police come to the scene and arrest him. Back inside the prison, Michael is taken to the psychiatric yard since he has convinced everyone that he is experiencing a mental episode. However, Michael is well. He approaches Potoshik to tell him that he was right about his tattoos. In fact, Michael wants him to remember his tattoos and draw them for him. Schofield realizes that the medicine makes Potoshik forget. In the meantime, Guard Geary tries to sell Schofield's cell to the highest bidder since it is in a good spot. T-Bag informs the crew about it, and C-Note tells Geary that he will buy the room for $500. Kellerman is dismissed by the Secret Service and the company because he has been compromised. C-Note asks his boys inside the prison to get him the money, but instead, he receives a beating. The blacks don't like the fact that C-Note is hanging out with T-Bag and the rest of the whites. Potoshik starts remembering Schofield gradually after he is convinced to stop taking his medication. Michael sees Sanchez and asks him to deliver a message to his cousin Sucre, telling him that he is trying to fill in the blanks. Soon, Potoshik remembers too much and jumps on Schofield because he screwed him back in their cell. Schofield has to outline the plan for him before Potoshik destroys the drawing he has made with the missing tattoo. Schofield sets up Potoshik again and asks to meet Sarah so he can get out of there. T-Bag and C-Note participate in a game of poker to make some money to buy the cell, but Geary just takes their money without giving them the cell. Sanchez now knows too much, and Sucre with Lincoln decide to tell him about the plan. Schofield comes up with a double solution to their problems. He asks to speak to Pope and tells him that Geary extorted him for money. Since he could not make the payment, Geary burnt him. Pope checks on Geary's locker and finds a lot of money in it. Geary is fired and leaves the prison. At the same time, Lincoln is transferred outside the prison because he has been allowed to visit his son for an hour. While the van is en route, a large truck hits it and flips it over. Lincoln wakes up in a field with Kellerman standing on top of him. Kellerman tries to strangle him, but a man appears and knocks the agent out. Schofield reunites with his team to announce to them that he knows how they are going to escape. However, he needs the key to the infirmary, which is only possessed by the medical staff. At the same time, Abruzzi returns to the prison having survived T-Bag's attack. Michael kisses Sarah in the infirmary, but he feels bad to steal the keys from her, so he just asks her to wait for him. Even though Sarah likes him, she can't be in a relationship with him because he is an inmate. Schofield asks David for help, but the young man will only assist him if Michael can get rid of his cellmate Avocado, who keeps harassing David. The mysterious man who saved Lincoln is revealed to be his father, Aldo. Aldo explains that he used to work for the company, a group of multinationals who call the shot behind the government. They basically control everything. Aldo left them and took some information with him, so they do everything they do to Lincoln in the hope that they will find Aldo. Meanwhile, Abruzzi is a changed man since he believes that Jesus saved him. He shakes hands with T-Bag, asking him to leave the past behind. Despite his change of behavior, he still wants to escape with the rest of the group. Mika meets Sarah outside the prison to tell her that Michael is a good man. He married her so that she could get a green card and live in the country peacefully. However, the real reason for this meeting is so she can steal Sarah's keys and then visit Michael to give him the keys. Aldo reveals that the company faked Stedman's death to prevent a scandal, but the police and Kellerman find them. To protect his father and stay alive, Lincoln gives himself in. Michael makes a copy of the infirmary key, but Sarah understands the plot and asks to have the lock changed. Later, Abruzzi calls somebody and asks him to be ready. It is revealed that he is talking to Nick, who is watching over Veronica for Abruzzi. David is in serious trouble with Avocado, so Michael approaches him to give him a chance to get out of there. David reassures him that he can be trusted, but he tells Bellick everything about the escape once Michael lets him know. Bellick runs to the guard's room and discovers the hole on the floor. Cooper attacks Bellick to prevent him from exposing their operation. The old man has some fight left in him and knocks Bellick out even though he is severely injured. Once Cooper tells Michael about this, the latter declares that they are leaving tonight. Schofield gives everyone some tasks while also stressing that they need to cover their scents because the police dogs will be their main enemies after the escape. Then, Michael speaks to Sarah and tells her everything. The group will have to pass through here, so Michael asks Sarah to forget the door unlocked. Sarah leaves without giving him a clear answer. At the same time, Abruzzi calls Nick to tell him that he has to bring Veronica to the designated location tonight. Pope tries to transfer the Taj Mahal replica, but the roof collapses, so he asks for Michael to come in his office. Veronica is getting ready to fly to Montana to investigate some clues, but Nick pulls a gun on her. While everybody is preparing for the escape, a nurse walks out of the infirmary and closes the door behind her. Sarah is not working this evening. Meanwhile, Pope learns that Bellick is nowhere to be found. He starts looking everywhere for him, and even calls his wife, but nobody has seen Bellick since this morning. Then, Pope takes Michael into his office to tell him about the replica, and Schofield presents him with a piece that has been holding the roof. Michael pulls a knife and tells the warden that he is escaping. He threatens the warden that he will be forced to make arrangements so Lincoln can join them. Schofield asks Pope to order his men to transfer Lincoln to the infirmary and leave him there for the night. Pope tries to talk Michael out of this, but Schofield has made his decision. After Pope gives the order, Michael locks him in the office closet. When it's time, the prisoners pass through the hole one by one. Bellick almost frees himself and starts screaming for help, but the inmates reach him just in time to stop him. Meanwhile, the company gives up on Reynolds, who wants to run for president, because she seems to be losing in the polls. Their estimation is that she is not going to go down quietly, so they need to make a move on her ASAP. Sarah returns to the prison and opens the door for Schofield because she believes Lincoln is innocent. Michael sounds the fire alarm at the psychiatric ward so he can cause an evacuation of the ward. Schofield and his group use white uniforms to mingle with those inmates and get inside the psychiatric ward. Elsewhere, Nick changes his mind and lets Veronica go, even though the Mafia has his father. This will later lead to Nick and his father getting killed by the Mafia. The team finds Lincoln, but Pope's secretary also finds the warden, who sounds the alarm immediately. On top of that, Potoshek has followed the group and wants to escape with them. Since he is threatening to notify the guards, the group will take him. The team uses a rope to get past the wall. Old Man Cooper succumbs to his serious wounds, but still tells Michael where he has hidden the money. Some of the other inmates also hear him revealing the location. Michael and Sanchez are the last ones to use the rope, but the weight is too much for the rope to hold. Sanchez falls due to his excessive weight, but Michael makes it. Bellick is freed and Pope gathers his men to tell them that they should bring the convicts back in no matter what. He gives them the freedom to shoot if they have to. The escapees find a van placed there by Abruzzi's men. They play a little trick and leave Potoshek behind. Pope finds out that the door in the infirmary has not been breached, which can only mean that somebody left it open for the inmates. Inside the van, Abruzzi is about to kill Teabag, but the latter handcuffs himself to Schofield and swallows the key. Soon, the crew is forced to ditch the van and run on foot. Schofield forces David to leave the team since he betrayed their plan to Bellick. In the meantime, Reynolds refuses to go down without a fight, and she prepares a plot to kill the President of the United States. The team of escapees hides in a warehouse for a moment, but they have to do something about Teabag because he is slowing them down. After they jump on him, Sucre tries to cut the handcuffs, but it doesn't work. Abruzzi has had enough, so he grabs an axe and chops Teabag's hand off. The group flees while Teabag is left on the ground. Meanwhile, the president dies, and Reynolds swears as the new president. The company wants to renegotiate with her, but she has more power now. Pope sends his men to find Sarah, but she is in no condition to speak since she is overdosed. Veronica lands in Montana and enters a mansion. As she expected, she finds Stedman alive. The fugitives make a run for the airstrip, where Abruzzi's men are waiting with the plane. However, the police also arrive. The pilot of the plane knows that they are going to get caught, so he gets the engines running. The fugitives reach the airstrip, but they only see the plane leaving. While the police cars are arriving, everybody wonders what they should do not. There is only one thing they can do: run.